Our next guests are an Emmy-winning artist and a talented young filmmaker who come together to tackle the always fun topic of sex education in this hilarious new movie, Doin' It. Lilly Singh and Sara Zandieh, we welcome you to the South by Southwest studio. How are we doing, guys?
I'm doing amazing. I already love your energy. I'm obsessed with you already.
You know, I came out the womb with it, so
That's
like
what's
I
up.
just
Me too.
try to keep us. I already know.
Natural
like,
energy, drink energy.
This
I like
is what
it.
it's all
That's
about.
What's up.
And you know what? Like, I love talking about sex. Like, I really do.
Okay, I've never related to anything less.
You know what I'm saying? But that's what this movie is about, right? And it's about like the weird sex education system that like we come up in, and I kind of want to like talk to you about your experiences like in sex education and the inspiration for this film.
Totally. Do you want me to start? Yeah, so when you were talking about sex, if you zoomed into my face, I was like, this movie has gotten me a lot more comfortable even saying sex out loud. But growing up, I had a pretty reserved childhood. I never got the talk. We barely had sex education. It wasn't even a proper class or a proper time in our schedule. It was our gym teacher, literally, who like did 1 2-hour thing. And all I remember is one person asking a question. I'll never forget this. One person asked a question, went, well, like, what if the penis is the size of this pencil? Will it just fall out? And I just remember the gym teacher saying, why would you take it? And I was like, what?
Whoa.
I was like, what? That's literally what. And that was my sex education.
Oh my gosh.
I literally, up until grade 9, I was like, I can't sit in a boy's lap. I will get pregnant. Like, that was me.
Oh my
100%.
God. You know what? My sex education was not that great either. It was done by my aunt who raised me. And she just sat me and my 4 brothers down and just showed us venereal disease pictures.
That's in the movie.
Is that it? Oh, I'm gonna relate to this so much.
Yeah, totally.
She was like, "Hey, we're gonna learn about sex today." We were like super excited. Like, oh yeah, we're gonna learn how to do it, and doing it just looked horrible.
Did you have sex education? Did you?
We did. Well, similarly, my gym teacher just taught it to us, and one of my classmates went up to him and said, like, "When is the right time to have sex?" And he handed her a pamphlet on venereal diseases.
Wow.
So it was basically like abstinence, which made it into the movie.
Yes.
We have a scene where there's
Honestly,
there was so much like mining from high school.
It's not based on a true story, but it's based on a true story. You know what I mean?
Kinda, like, it's got that
based on millions of true stories.
Yeah, it's got the real to it.
Totally.
I read this this interview. It's probably your statement about the movie where you said that someone close to you referred to your vagina as your shame.
Yes. So in Indian culture, and I think in all cultures around the world, actually, I won't nerd out too much, but if you look at the history of naming of female body parts, up until like 20, don't fact check me, but I think it's 18 or 19.
That's super soon.
That's actual
recent.
Scientific and anatomical, whatever that word is, term for the vagina was shame in Latin.
Wow.
So it's actually a universal thing, but yes, in Indian culture growing up, all my aunties called my vagina shame. That was a thing.
That also made it into the movie.
That's also in the movie. We'll just follow that up at everything. That's also in the movie. But I think it's a big thing. I think
trauma.
In every culture, because I don't want to say it's an Indian thing, but every culture, women are not really encouraged. Girls are not really encouraged to talk about their bodies or address their bodies in any such way with any bit of pride. You know?
Yeah, my grandmother would always refer to that as the devil.
Okay.
So, you know.
Your grandma said, India, hold my beer.
Shout out to Nada. She had her own like ways of doing it. But what type of conversations do you want to spark with like this type of film? I'm very curious.
I mean, hopefully it'll encourage people to have, more open conversations about sex and sexuality in the American high school curriculum, but also at home with their families. And with their friends. I mean, part of it is like, it is a satire about how misinformed teenagers are and how they have nowhere to go to get information. And so hopefully it will encourage people to just foster more open conversations about sex and sexuality.
Right, is the older I get, the more like sex positive I get, and just kind of like accepting what comes with sex, like what it means to have sex, that type of thing. And I'm really happy to see this kind of like new wave of sex education in media. Like, you can mention sex education, extremely popular on Netflix. Was there any like scenes from other movies that have to do with sex education that you were just kind of like, we want to like pay homage to that, or that kind of inspired you guys?
I mean, do you have any inspiration?
I mean, we looked at sex education, the series, but it's not really about like this is very much like a substitute teacher movie combined, like it's a hybrid of the substitute teacher movie and the sex comedy. So there isn't quite a genre like this. Like it was, I feel like I looked at a lot of high school movies. We looked at School of Rock, which is a substitute teacher movie, but I don't think there's anything quite like this. It's a bit of a hybrid.
Yeah, I will say, not to brag, but nothing's like our movie.
Brag it.
Because I will say this movie is about a virgin, and the most popular comedy that's about a virgin is 40-Year-Old Virgin, and the virgin is the butt of the joke. And I think this is a very real, albeit comedic, telling of like an older female virgin where she's taking pride in like her choices, and she's on her own journey that's really empowering. I don't think we've seen that. Having said all of that, a scene I think of, one of my favorite movies is Bridesmaids.
Oh,
and
yes.
I think the opening scene of that where they're having awkward sex was like one of the times that stands out to me where I was like, oh, so it's not all just like everything's figured out and everyone's on the same page, and I like embracing that. That is like, it is a bit awkward, and like there is a learning curve to it, and it's something we should all just kind of talk about. That it's a little uncomfortable sometimes.
I really like the bridesmaid thing, because I don't want to say it was the first time I saw awkward sex portrayed in film, but at the same time it's kind of comforting where you're just kind of like, oh, yeah, that happens. You know, it's not always the most perfect thing.
Other people are also bad at the things you could be bad at. What's better than that?
Especially someone as good looking as John Hamm.
That's what I'm saying.
You're watching a sex symbol being awkward during sex. It's like, now I can be awkward during sex, and I'm happy about that.
Totally.
So, Sarah, you described Lily's her performance as like a modern day Ferris Bueller. Like, can you like explain, like kind of like elaborate on that?
Well, I love high school comedies. I was a 90s teen, and I was just like, I love John Hughes movies,
same.
his whole just genre. When I was a teen, we didn't have like YA, we just had like John Hughes movies. And so, Ferris Bueller was one of my favorite movies, and it's kind of what inspired the direct-to-camera for us to write that in. But I wanted to see a diverse woman. I feel like all of those high school movies, like there was just no diversity. And so Lily was such an inspiration for, kind of a modern day Ferris Bueller and like, just stumbling through this high school. And so I definitely did kind of tip my hat to that movie.
That's excellent. So you and Sarah, Lily, you and Sarah co-wrote this movie along with the author, right? Like, can you talk to us about like that process and kind of collaboration?
So the first draft was written by this amazing writer, Neil Patel, and I fell in love with the premise right away. And I related to so many parts of this film, and I was like, oh my God, growing up, if I had seen anything like this, my life would have been so different. And then Sara came on board, and I just really wanted to make sure there was a woman of color at the helm of this project, because that's such an important part of this. I mean, it's not a story that's solely about an Indian woman, but I do think the cultural lens is important in this way because of what you just mentioned, that so many of these films are not told through a diverse lens. And so it was such a dream team package. And then it's the first film that I ever co-wrote as well. So I feel really grateful and privileged that I was in the hands of two people that are more seasoned than I am, and I learned so much from them, and it was just like a great experience.
Okay.
Yeah, it was so cool because I grew up in a Persian home, and like we were like pretty progressive for our community, but still like topics of like sex, dating, relationship was like strictly taboo. So it was cool to just. And my best friend was Indian, and she was having a very similar experience at home, and so it was great to work with other diverse writers.
I think something you said is so important. That my upbringing as well, I wouldn't really consider my parents very strict. Actually, they're pretty like. My mom knows every Drake lyric. Like, she's out there. She's like chilling. But when I tell that to people, they'll be like, "Oh, so you like moved out of the house, we're allowed to do whatever." I was like, whoa, don't be crazy. I think there's different
we still
bars.
got our boundaries,
So even in the film, my mom in the film is not very strict, but I think that's for a South Asian mom, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see those levels of as well of like people's upbringing that I don't think we've seen in films. Because I'd be like, my mom wasn't very strict, and then I watched Mean Girls and I was like, maybe she was. Maybe she was a little strict.
Yeah, totally. Because I feel like, I didn't grow up religious. I grew up in a very secular home, but still, my parents were Iranian, and like I wouldn't go to them to ask about like dating or sex relationships. I'd have to go to like my American white friends, whose parents were like a little more open to those conversations. So it's also a little bit of the growing up in a kind of more conservative Eastern culture.
Yeah, it's like you're not like locked behind iron balls like balls. They were talking about sex. And I'm just like, my track of mind is going like. They're prepping me for this movie. But it's not like you're locked behind iron bars like Harry Potter or something, and it won't let you see the world. It's just like a different cultural kind of like benchmark that you're living in. Whereas like in America, things are a little bit more like, you know, open with those type of things. Now, obviously, like, sex in your household was a taboo subject, but humor was not, and you're both extremely funny. Like, you know, we've been laughing this whole time. Can you talk a little bit about, like, crafting that sense of humor during your upbringing and kind of, like, putting that?
I just realized that I have a complex because a man told me I was funny, and I think something
Oh my
happened in
God.
my body. Literally, my body was like,
Oh,
can you say it again?
You're actually really funny in a
Actually really
sexist
funny.
way.
You don't have that when I say it.
You're like, Duke, I'm just realizing my own complex right now. The
No.
power of the patriarchy. I was like,
Do you want me to, like,
I
imagine
might need
you
you
as
to
a
record
man?
that later. I
Yeah.
need to listen
You know
to it on
what?
repeat.
You know what? Let's just strike that whole part.
Oh, no, I love it. It was like, I'm slightly aroused. No, humor was, you know, my parents and my sister, I think by nature they're quite funny. I didn't realize it growing up until some of my friends recently met my parents and they're like, you definitely get your comedy. My mom roasts me on the regular. Like, she's in my comments on IG just roasting me. She's usually a top comment. They are really funny. And I think even aside from my parents, growing up, I did grow up with a lot of different taboo subjects, whether it was sex, whether it was mental health. So comedy really was my savior.
Right.
Because I realized I was like, okay, it's really awkward for me to have like serious conversations about these things, but if I can joke around about them, if I can like talk about it with my friends, especially my parents, and it's like, hey, like LOL, LOL,
Yeah.
it's easier for me to talk about. So I just really leaned on comedy, and I think it is the best vehicle to have uncomfortable conversations. So it has been a savior in my life and upbringing personally.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, same. I mean, humor was the art of survival. I mean, it was.
I like that.
It was just a defense. I mean, like we grew up. I had like my family fled war. We faced a lot of social exclusion. We were immigrants, and it was just humor was our survival tactic. It was just they were both sides of my family are really really funny, and we just used comedy to cope.
See, that's good. See, when people tell me I'm funny, they go like, wow, you're surprisingly very funny, because not to brag, they also think I'm handsome. And they say like, you're handsome and you're funny. I'm like, well, fun fact, I grew up ugly. So I had to adapt the personality.
I doubt that.
Oh, I'm gonna show you a photo later. It's not good. So you talked about like your kind of like inspirations. You said like, you brought the Ferris Bueller reference in there. So I'm very curious, like what, and this is for both of you, your Mount Rushmore of like 80s and 90s like teen like comedies.
Ooh, that's a great question.
Breakfast Club.
I'm gonna get up and I'm gonna high five. I don't care if that's
Best.
not on camera. That's like all time, like teen
Number one.
comedy wise, #1 80s
Yeah.
movie. Like that's it.
Okay, I don't know if
Yeah.
I'm gonna hit as early as the 80s. I'm on the younger side, honestly. But I'll give you some of my favorite movies and the ones that I watch, especially prep for this. I love Easy A.
Easy
I
A.
love
Easy
Easy A
A
as a
is
film.
great.
School of
Great
Rock is definitely one I
Yes.
watched as well. I have to once again shout out Mean Girls, especially because
Yeah.
Anna's in this as well.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
And we did look at that movie.
We did.
Yeah.
And fun fact, say it.
fact.
You say it. You say it. No, you say it.
We used the same exterior high school as in Mean Girls.
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
So there's the same
Same.
exterior school shirt.
There's
so
a
that's
little Easter egg in
yeah,
there.
totally. That's a little tribute we paid.
Wow. Please
Totally.
tell me on set there was a moment where you did like the slow-mo walk through like the hall with like the A like Emma Stone did. Like I wouldn't.
I had that on my shot list, but we just had it. No, I'm just kidding. But there's something like
The
that.
shot list was a suggestion.
we were
Because
The
the,
pace,
shot
the
list was
pace
a
of the movie.
suggestion because the budget was firm.
Yeah.
So
we
The
were
budget
moving very
says all
we
this.
fast.
tried our darn best.
Yeah, it was lightning
But we
speed.
have some cool shots.
Yeah.
Some
Okay.
hallway
Oh, yeah,
shots.
totally.
I would have shot that bad boy on an iPhone and put it in the movie. Like here you go.
There is some of that.
We had a crane some days, and sometimes we had an iPhone on a step stool. And you know what? You do what you got to do.
You do what you got to do.
Yes.
People love the content either way. Yeah. So speaking of content, like we talked a little bit about like your rise as a content creator, and now like you're making movies and writing movies, and it's incredible. And as a content creator who came up on TikTok talking about film, I just like inspiration.
I think, you know, I look at my career right now where I am is in a point of evolution. You know, 2 days ago I was joking about it, but I got the Comedy Crossover Award at Variety Power of Comedy Awards.
Congratulations.
And yeah, it meant a lot to me because I do feel like that. I do feel like I've crossed over. You know, I started on YouTube and then I went to late night, and those are really cool, great things. But I think now I've crossed over and evolved into this space where I want to create stories, TV, film that really is something that I believe the world truly needs, that I can uniquely offer it.
Yeah.
You know, this film doing it, I really do believe that I hope at least a lot of girls and women especially will watch it and be like, damn, I feel less alone after watching this. And that's the kind of stuff I want to make. I want to use my superpower of storytelling to change culture. And I do believe if more movies like this exist, girls and women, you know, could potentially be treated better amongst themselves and by others. And so I did something that was cool and I learned a lot of skills, but it taught me what I actually want to use my energy towards.
Yeah, the next question was like, what do you think were your greatest accomplishments? And I'm hearing it like right now coming out of
I
it.
would like to believe they're ahead of me, but I mean, thus far, the accomplishments I've had, I'm so grateful. I could not imagine half of the stuff that has happened in my life, honestly. The fact that I get to say, subtle plug, I don't mean to, but the other day in hair and makeup, I was sitting there and I was like, had a humbling moment because I was on my phone looking through my schedule and I was like, oh, my hairline launches the same day as my film premiere. And my makeup artist was like, wait, pause.
That's
Such
hard.
a
That's
flex
kinda
of us.
cool.
And I was like,
Like-
oh, here I am sitting stressed about that both these things fall on the same day. I'm actually so grateful that I get to do a lot of cool things with a lot of really cool people, and I'm so extremely grateful to be in this position.
That's incredible. When you said that, my eyebrow raised. I was like, that's a problem? Like,
But I'm also going to have to add in, because I also said during my Power of Comedy speech that women were so used to being grateful. And we do this thing where we're like, and I don't know if I deserve, so I'm also going to follow it up with, I'm also so glad I worked so hard to get here.
There you
because,
go. There you go.
you know, that's important too.
That's cool. And honestly, speaking of cool people, Sarah, like, you're
Sara
pretty...
is super freaking cool.
Sara, you're pretty cool. You're dope. You directed 3 movies so far, right? What other genres are you, like, hoping to tackle? Do you have anything kind of, like, in your mind that you're rattling around? Like,
I mean, I'll always be in like some spectrum of comedy, but I'd like to do a dramedy, something that's a little more serious with humor. But I think humor will inevitably be in my voice. I think this was just like a full-blown comedy. It's very silly, it's very funny, but at the end of the day, it is dealing with a real message and a real story, and it is really grounded. There's a lot of heart in this movie. But yeah, I think I'm interested in a little more dramatic,
I like that.
possibly next, but we'll see.
Dramedy is one of my favorite, like, genres, period.
Yeah,
Like,
I love me a family dramedy.
yeah, it's great. So I'm going to be looking forward to that, Sarah.
you.
It's gonna be
Same.
great. And final question, Lily, you're like a hyphen talent. And this tells you, like, how impressed I am, because I didn't even know what a hyphen talent was until, like, you kind of came along, right?
You're like, until your publicist made it up.
Yeah. usually I get, like,
Shout-outs.
Good
love
job.
y'all.
Good job. Usually you get things like triple threats and things like that, but I like the word hyphen talent, because that says, like, oh, no, there's, like, multiple, right? Using those talents, what are some things on your to-do list, like, maybe later this year, in the future, that you're hoping to kind of create?
I have no shortage of goals in my life. I'm one of those people that's going to be 80 that's like, what can I do next? More TV and film, definitely. You know, this is actually my production company, Unicorn Island Productions' first feature, so we're really proud, and we hope there's many more to come. The cool thing about Unicorn Island is there's also a charitable component, and so my charity is all about girls and women. And so as much as I can fuse entertainment and girls and women is what I'm going to do. I think that's going to be my lifelong mission, and I think how it manifests will be different. So I have a lot of ambitions around making some like really deep, awesome, but still entertaining content. Something that's always gonna be on my goals list, and I don't care how big I get, I'm always gonna be shameless and say this, I will absolutely have to shoot a film with Dwayne Johnson before I die. Maybe you can direct it. Maybe that can be the dramedy. That will absolutely.
I can see that happening.
That will absolutely have to happen. And you'll listen, not to get too deep, but like going back to what I said my life's work is, I've just learned in this industry, all this stuff is really cool. Don't take me wrong. This festival is really cool. This film's really cool. Accolades are really cool.
Right.
But the thing that is the coolest for me is if there's a girl anywhere in the world that's like, I get to go to school, or I get to like fulfill my dreams, or have an opportunity because in some way, shape, or form, Lily did something.
Yeah.
It's like, that's what I really want. I
like
just
that.
really want as many girls to crush it and be sitting on this couch and be on this couch.
That's amazing. And you're doing it universally too, because you like
trying.
made me think that as well. So that's incredible.
I love that. Thank you.
So Lily, Sara, thank you so much
Thank
for coming to
you.
the studio.
You're so
This
good
is
at
great.
this.
You
Thank
know,
you.
imagine
You're
this.
so good
It
at
started from
this.
TikTok, man. That's insane.
Listen, so much respect. That was very lovely. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, so not only thank them, thank you guys for tuning in. You can watch all of our studio interviews on the South by Southwest Studio YouTube page. That's youtube.com/SXSW. You girls are killing it.
We're trying our darn best.
We're trying.
We are.
We are.
Yeah.
Just about.
Yeah, as a nerd in me, the Yoda is saying like, do or do not, there is no try.
Oh, you know,
you're doing it.
Word.
You're doing it.
We're doing
You're
it.
doing it.
doing
Please tell me the camera's rolling on that. No? Yeah? We're okay, cool.
Doing it.
We're doing it.